This conference will now be recorded.
They weren't receptive, and I'm losing some weight and going to try it again, and that might work. But while we waited, we won. We had there was two components. There was an administrative complaint with the FAA and then a federal complaint. And we won 2 months ago the administrative complaint, and we had a quarter of the quarter of the complaint dismissed earlier this month in the federal case, the negligence claims.
Yeah,
So,
good.
and actually, without being too it was a really great opinion for us, because this is the second time that the federal courts have said that under New Mexico tort law, you have to specifically allege property damage with any negligence claim that's not against law enforcement. So, if we accidentally walk into somebody's property fixing a valve, there's no claim
Right.
in negligence now. So it should long-term save us a pretty good amount of money as a.
That's set precedent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not circuit precedent, but between Judge Browning and Damon Martinez was the one who did this, former U.S. attorney. So we got a Democrat and a very conservative judge both saying, yeah, this is the way it should be.
Good.
So at least in the federal courts, until the New Mexico Supreme Court says otherwise, we've got a very great defense to a lot of claims moving forward.
Good. Good. Are we being recorded now?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay. Are there any questions? The safety department report. Okay,
Off the hook?
she's off the hook.
Maybe I need to ask her a question.
No, she's been a busy woman.
Any questions? Cass can answer it.
I know where your office is.
Yeah,
Welcome anytime.
thank you. Next item on the non-action item is item number 2, which is the noise ordinance, which you will find page 9 of your packet. This item was sent back by council to this committee for additional review. And this is how it's set, as it came from the council, correct?
So yeah, Mr. Chair, if you guys have thoughts about what you'd like cleaned up, I'm happy to get it done before the next meeting. There's one thing I'd recommend off the bat, which is on page 11 for part 8, removing the word displays. We didn't want to from that subset. That way we.
Just fireworks.
Yeah, just period, not,
Yeah.
we didn't want to make it sound like you could just throw M80s
You can blow them
anytime.
M80s anytime.
Yeah, so we're saying M80s are prohibited except for these days now, in effect.
Does anyone have any other discussion on this concern?
Two. You pick it. So on page 10, item number 4, the 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
I felt it should be sunrise to sunset.
Talked about that
We
at
did.
council.
I learned it from you, yes.
Yeah, when we amended, so.
And could I make a clarification? So I guess in the winter months, that can be problematic. Would
Most
you,
of them would be out in the winter months.
well, and it's like 5:30, they'd have to end. And if that's the goal, that's good. I
His
just,
son now is up a little after 5. And that might for some folks.
Right, they wouldn't do that.
Yes.
I was thinking, should we do 8 to 7 or sunrise to sunset, whichever is longer?
Well, I don't want the,
Or,
The 8
just
to
asking a
7.
question.
that's a suggestion. So,
Actually, actually that would work. 8 to 7 or sunrise to sunset, whichever is longer.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That kind of hits both seasons. The biggest thing is summer is when you're doing most of your construction, and starting construction at 8 in the summer
Yeah.
isn't actually that's not even.
No, and I only thought about this today because I had guys digging up part of my yard to fix a leak.
Yeah.
And it was like, they won't be done by sunset. George, I want that
if
fixed.
they're not making noise, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so second item is, let's go back to page 11.
Is that for 4 and 5?
I did not want to add it to 5, but anyone, me personally,
Yeah,
I'm fine with the 8 AM to 7 PM on your neighbor and their power tools.
I think a lot of people get up early in the morning and mow their yards. And I don't want to limit them to having to do it. There are people that work different shifts.
Yeah.
And so I'm just finishing my note here before I finish on with that.
Yep, please.
So I'm opposed to the 8 AM
On number
myself.
5.
And I'm okay with 6 AM, but
Okay, I will support you if you, I'll support that. I mean,
So you're gonna go from 6 to 7? Is that what you're doing?
well, I think in the summertime, you can go past 7 PM because the sun doesn't set till 8:30 in the summertime. So
Basically
again, we
the
could do
same
this
laws.
whole same thing, the
Yeah.
8 AM to 7 PM or sunrise to sunset, whichever is longer.
Yeah,
We could use that same clause.
Mhm.
I think that works.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's go.
I have one more item that okay, I did have was asked to read a statement, but if you want me to use that, save that for public participation, I will. But it's on page 11, item number 8. And I am still I'm still having some serious issue, and so are many of my constituents regarding the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So I would like to have a discussion. I understand that but I'm comfortable with 3 days, but whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of your neighbor popping off fireworks when it comes to our veterans and PTSD. And also our animals, dogs are extremely, this is very stressful on animals. So I would like to open discussion on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th, and see if we can narrow it down to possibly 3, maybe 4. I might be willing, but 3, if it's possible. Just because, I'm sorry, but that 5 days of that, I don't have PTSD and it stresses me out. I can only imagine what veterans and their families are going through, having that happen for so many days.
Well,
I don't know, if you look at this next July 4th.
let's just see, look at the calendar a little bit and think about that when you are curtailing these to.
Because I recognize that sometimes it kind of varies when it comes in, but maybe there is verbiage that, I don't know, maybe there's verbiage that we can actually use where it kind of designates a certain amount of days, like, or, following weekend. See what the calendar.
Now, wait for the attorney to.
Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, okay, so 4th, 5th, and 6th is this next year is a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, see, and they're gonna go, people are gonna use that long weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so it's Friday was the 4th. 6th would be Sunday, correct?
Yeah. No.
Well, I don't think it's gonna matter what we put in the ordinance. People are gonna do what they're gonna do.
I recognize that, but there again, the stipulations and therefore giving our officers some way to actually designate when to, use these decibel or when to be able to restrict things.
Let me ask this other question.
Yeah.
If people have some kind of celebration they're having, they can do a fireworks display by permit?
Yeah, they would simply send the city manager. So if you guys pass this, we're just going to make a one-page application saying,
And
what's the
cost of
occasion?
the
Yeah,
permit?
it's going to be free. And so, if they say, we want we want to have a fireworks display for Hitler's birthday, we might think about whether or not we allow that. But if it's quinceañera, yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
So even if you limit those days, then they can still go get a permit if there's something special or something else. And then if they don't have a permit,
yeah. I don't know how enforcement's going to work on this. I mean, that's my real thing is, how's this thing really going to be enforced? I don't think it matters what dates we put in there.
well, I think
It
if there's
just-
a complaint that comes in, if someone actually calls and complains on their neighbor and the officers show up, then that is an option.
And it's going to go before the judge and get deferred sentence.
I think just as,
I like it.
I'm going to continue to try, but, oh, stop. Actually.
I'm sorry, did I say something that was
You did.
inappropriate?
You gave him the giggles. So
Just stating what happened, what I've observed.
that being said, but isn't this process a little bit different as far as violation?
Yeah, so for violations, there's two parts. So one, we're going to look to budget in next year's cycle a few of the sound devices so that officers can carry it with them and ding the people who are making that, annoying car drivers effectively.
That's the one I'm really,
And actually, if you're more than 30 feet away and you can feel vibrations from their car, that's a per se violation anyway. So
that in, yeah, that's the one that really is.
But I think you actually have a better chance of getting people with fireworks than you do.
dogs
the
count too. Right. And then, so yeah, so there, that's the, cops can issue citations if they're there for it, but for that guy who lives 2 doors down from you, who's always playing horrible music at 2 a.m., you're going to have to come to code enforcement or legal. And, if you want to file a complaint, we'll take your statements and we'll go through it. But if that witness doesn't show up, don't anticipate us helping the second time.
Okay, so I'm kind of confused. So if the 4th is on a Monday,
People they're going to start on the 3rd. They're going to start, if it's on Monday, 3rd is Sunday. The 2nd is Saturday and Friday, 1st. And you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen.
Prior to that? It's gonna happen prior to that.
Yeah.
Most places start selling fireworks, 4 weeks before
I know.
the holiday, so.
well, and no, absolutely. I get that. But I mean, I get that they buy them 4 weeks and they should be able to hold them for the days that are designated. I'm sorry, I've actually seen what this does to people and anyway. I get your rationale as far as it's restricted because of the days before and the days after and the weekends and all that stuff. But there again, we're actually requiring people to get permits or legally permitted. And if they don't have a legally permitted fireworks display, then we can go after them. Why can't we narrow the days on that? I understand this is a discussion and I hear you and I'm not done thinking. So I've got a couple weeks? I got a couple weeks to come up with something logical,
Yeah,
right?
after the first year.
Okay,
We'll put it back. on the
don't put it
agenda.
past me. I'm gonna come up with something.
We're going to put it back on the agenda in January.
Okay,
Is what I believe.
yeah, so I'll be looking at every other city, you know that.
Yeah, I'm okay with trying to figure out what's reasonable for everyone and how you're going to enforce this and it doesn't affect me because I'm not going to do any of this. So
Right,
there's a lot of young people in this community and just,
but every day for, 6, 7 days. And I get that this limits it to 5, but even 5 is,
I mean, occasionally you don't get to be young at heart.
I'm going to sit back and watch.
I'm just those little pop snaps, the ones that you throw on the
Throw on the
ground.
ground,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get you some of those next year.
I probably hurt myself with them.
Like your pants on.
Strain your shoulder.
Yeah,
or your back.
throwing them too hard.
You're giving me the giggle. Okay.
It looked pretty good. You just stop them too.
Oh, yeah, we're good. Shoot. You have any comments there, Councilor Pesa?
Yes, sir, I need to ask you a question because uh, from the meeting that we had, the council meeting, I think you were one of the ones that was very adamant about some specific language, and I don't.
Well, part of the language was just 8 a.m. to
Okay,
7 p.m. I was very strongly opposed to that. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to send this back to this committee. Was I was strongly opposed
I just couldn't remember what the language.
to both of them. And then I felt that if we can work out these days here and not go through that big, long exercise it was going to take a council, if we can get it done here, that's something reasonable that we can present to council. That was,
So we got there with the suggestions.
we've got suggested language here, which is 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. or sunrise to sunset, whichever is greater.
So now the issue is Councilor Arnold trying to address the
Fireworks
fireworks.
Yeah.
in the number of days. Well, and actually, I can easily spend a good minute researching what other communities have done. And I know there are communities that, in the verbiage that they use, that, so I always say, you know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So I'll just go look and steal someone else's and see if it works. I'll run it by there and, because yeah, this is a hangup, but I know that other communities have gotten past it. So their verbiage may be what we need.
Yeah, if you want to do some additional research, I think that's fine.
It's Christmas. I have nothing else to do.
Yeah, right. I think that's a suggestion.
Okay. I'll
I
research.
guess I want to go back in here. Did we specifically say what the penalty was going to be?
Yes. The penalty is on page 12, beginning at line 23, and we have it as a misdemeanor.
Violation. Misdemeanor.
So up to $500, up to 90 days.
Thanks, Leo.
Yeah. I hate putting the word petty in, but
It's a petty misdemeanor.
The maximum.
That's a maximum.
that's our maximum jurisdiction.
Yeah. And it's also subject to a restraining order or an injunction.
Right, and that actually,
It has to be done by somebody.
right, and that language, we're going to start adding that in because to anything that would affect a business rather than an individual, because you
Right.
can't take a business to criminal court. But if it's a music venue that's violating the law, like, you know, what is the club, the nightclub by the bowling alley, a lot of complaints about that. They're technically not in the same, but if there was something similar, we could go to court, or a neighbor even could just do it as a nuisance suit and point to this
Right.
law and saying they're violating the law and join them. And that's up to $10,000 today if you violate the court's injunction.
Right.
So it's a better tool, actually.
But you're saying an officer can write a citation. on fireworks.
No, the officer can cite a citation on anything.
Any of this,
Any of it.
correct?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any further discussions? Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, the Roswell Air Center lease agreements. First one being the lease agreement.
So we'll consider recommending Carlson Walker's request to enter a one-year lease for Hangar 119 Space 1, consisting of 1,175 square feet more or less, located at the Roswell Air Center, commencing on January 1, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024, for the purpose of storing and maintaining privately owned aircraft. Tenant agrees to pay the landlord as the rent sum of $3,025.68 annually, payable in 12 monthly installments of $252.14. This is a 3% increase from last year, and I stand for any questions.
Mr. Walker agreed to this.
Yes.
Any questions? We're going to have a motion then?
Mr. Chairman, we move the lease for Carlton Walker to the city council.
Second,
Consent agenda?
Sure.
Hmm.
Yes.
second to the consent agenda?
So I have a motion and a second to approve the lease with Mr. Walker for the T hangar space 119, or T hangar 119, space 1, be placed on the consent agenda for next council meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is the Bravo Air Center lease with Wadsworth. Page 34 in your packet.
This is to consider recommending Tom Wadsworth's request to enter a one-year lease for another T hangar at 119 Space 3, consisting of 1,002 square feet more or less, located at Russell Air Center, commencing January 1, 2024, and ending December 31st, 2024, also for the purpose of storing and maintaining a privately owned aircraft. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord the rent sum of $3,025.68 annually, payable in 12 monthly installments of $252.14. And I think that I have two hangars. It's two hangars, my apologies. He also wants 120 space 3, so it's 119 space 3 and 120 space 3. It's two T hangars. So the second T hangar will be $2,580.12, payable 12 monthly installments of $215.01 for space 3 and 120. Both of them are a 3% increase over last year, and he already resides in those T hangars and would like to remain.
I do have a question. I believe these numbers are flipped. 119 is got 1,002 square feet, and you're going to lease it for $3,000. I think those numbers are,
That's correct. They are.
they're not correct as presented here.
Yes, sir.
The space 119 should be for the $2,580.12 annual, and space 120 should be for the $3,025.68.
Did you just catch that?
No, I did my homework.
You are good.
So those are reversed.
Okay.
You're correct. The 252.14 should be for space 120, or T hangar 120 space 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then they both come out to
That's correct.
$2.57 a foot when
You are
it was
correct.
300, it was 302 and 220. So I don't know whether the leases have that. Now, the leases, I did not go back and look at the leases to see what the amount was. But, yeah, the leases are,
Are reversed as well?
yes, the leases are reversed as well. So they need to be corrected.
Yes, sir.
It's what you can do when you're retired and don't have a lot to do.
You need to call me ahead of time, like fix it.
I did it this morning.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? So if I can get someone to make a motion that corrects these dollar amounts,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'll move this lease forward on the consent agenda at the next city council meeting, noting the requests. Clarify the document and make it correct. I'm not going to go into which is what.
You want me to do that for you?
No, I think Ms. Langford is capable of doing that, and if she isn't, then I'll take her and throw up with my whooping stick.
That's all right. I know it'll happen.
And the dark glasses too.
Okay, so
Second.
I have a motion,
Stands a long way.
and a second to place on the consent agenda for next council meeting, the lease with both leases with Mr. Wadsworth with building 119 space 3 in the amount of $2,580.12. And building 120 space 3, in the amount of $3,025.68. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. Those opposed, same. Being none, so moved 4-0.
Already got a headache.
Next item on the agenda is the ordinance amending chapter 2 of the city code, which is page 74.
We have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have one more. I'm jumping in.
We can cancel that one
We got-
if you want.
You want me to
We
correct?
got a lease agreement with Aero Design at the Roswell Air Center. Ms. Lanford.
All right, this is to consider recommending Aero Design Services LLC's request to enter a one-year lease for 850 square feet of office space in Building 1000 located at the Roswell Air Center, commencing on December 1st, 2023 and ending November 30th, 2024, for the purpose of administrative support services for aircraft repairs. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as rent the sum of $10,200 and no cents annum, payable in 12 monthly installments of $850. This is $12 per square foot. However, it does include maintenance and utilities.
Counselor Corn.
So do we have specific room that this is covering, or can they just kind of use whatever they want to use?
They are provided the 850 square feet of their office space and the common area of the bathrooms. And then there is a kitchen common area. That is it.
Are they currently maintaining their stuff in their space?
As of yesterday, they were in an additional storage room. I've consulted with the city manager and the attorney, and I will be addressing that tomorrow with them.
There's no way to walk them out the rest of the building. Pretty wrong.
Well, the deal's a deal. I mean, I know they're gonna have access back and forth, but actually putting stuff in there is problematic.
If you look at your exhibit attached to the lease, the room adjacent, the storage room adjacent to the 850 square feet is the room that they are additionally in right now.
Page
69.
Then we need to do one of two things. Need to add the square footage to this lease. They're already occupying, or wait for them to clean up their mess.
I concur.
Move to table this item, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to postpone this item until the next meeting. Are you okay with that, Counselor? Next meeting?
You're the chairman. I just tabling it. You can drag it off the table anytime you want.
Yeah, we'll put it for the next meeting. A second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. So moved.
And that gives her some teeth when she goes out there and visits with them.
That's right.
Right,
You gotta pay for this space, or you clean your stuff out.
Thank you.
right. I get it. Okay, now that I already mentioned the next item ahead of time, let's go back to it. Item number 4, which is the ordinance amending chapter 2 of the city code, page 74.
Which copy are you gonna go with? The
Yeah.
red line version or the clean version? I don't care. Just tell me.
Doesn't matter to me either.
If you guys would prefer the clean version, that'll be easier.
Yeah,
That begins on page 88.
What made all my?
Oh, well, in that case, the red line, if that's the case, the red line is in fact the superior version to use.
I don't care.
yeah.
All right. Yes, you're let our legal advisor.
Yes, it's the,
So, Counselor, almost everything in the initial, in this, the version, the clean and the red line were failed by a majority vote in the council a few months back. After discussing with a number of counselors and conferring with state law, I've made a few changes at the top in Division 1. and I'll walk you through those. So if you're looking at, so which one would you actually prefer, the red line? Okay.
On the red line.
Okay, so if you're on the red line, if you're on page 75, time of meetings. So that was struck because state law provides that every year you have to pass a resolution setting the time of meetings. So I don't want to put the council in a position where if they want to change a meeting time via state law, it would conflict with the ordinance. So that's a cleanup provision. The chief of police part was already struck. Rules of order was already struck. Quorum was struck. Presiding officer. And I'm really not sure what we should be forced to call the mayor in a meeting, but if you've got something funny, we can really put it in there quickly.
Right.
Conduct at the meetings were supposed to not be disorderly. And I guess that was there because of Councilor Corn Best's recommendation. Now, when we get to page 77, gets to the meat of changes, and this is something I've discussed with some of you as council, and I'd like to get your thoughts. Presently, there's, and from the administrative perspective, we have public safety, infrastructure, and general services. And there's some serious overlap when it comes to those three, partly in that the council historically hasn't been able to sit in one committee and work on our capital plan. And so because the cops have a capital plan, general services have a capital plan, infrastructure has a capital plan. To my eye, if we're serious about some of our budget problems and how we manage our long-term infrastructure, it needs to hit one committee to do the groundwork for the planning, and then it needs to go to finance to make sure we can actually fund it adequately. So those are combined. Also, and then this is, speaking selfishly as a salaried guy here, we spend a lot of time just getting packets together.
Right.
And, we can cut out, like a quarter-time employee just by combining these committees into one. And the committee times, if you look at those three, are typically a lot shorter than legal and finance. Those committees take a lot longer. So we'd have three committees that have about an equal amount of work, and one committee can really drill down on our long-term capital planning and then send it to finance, which gets me to the second part. I also believe no standing committee shall form any subcommittee. I'm not sure why that's in there. It seemed to me that the discretion of the chair is to form a subcommittee if they want, shouldn't be prohibited by law. And then finally, section 2-38, which begins on line 23 of page 77, is going to set a rule that actually gives teeth to the committees. So as it reads, it's generally in order for a proposed action to go before the full governing body, the action must be referred by two of the most applicable committees. In other words, it's going to always go, whatever would start at general services or infrastructure or public safety will start there. And then it will either, if it has money attached, will go to legal or go to finance. And if it is an ordinance or a land use decision, will go to legal. Not unlike what we're doing now. And the idea is that if two committees don't agree it's ready for prime time, it's not ready for prime time.
So and that's on every item? Sorry.
And now the exception, of course, is 4 councilors may send it to council themselves or the mayor, which has been his prerogative always.
Councilor Corn.
Chairman, I've been struggling with this because we've been talking about it for a while. I'm one of the ones that kind of got this deal going. Matter of fact, 3 of the ones listed here are sitting in this room. So, 2 things. We've got some big projects that need to be carefully planned and be careful. I don't say we just pass ideas. I want a plan for implementation of our ambulance service. We need to take a serious look at our water infrastructure. We need to take a serious look at our streets. Now, a lot of that work's been done, but somebody needs a fine-tooth comb, go through all that stuff and look at it. And under the way I understand this proposal is that you got one group of counselors that's going to be tasked with this big problem. And I mean, I'm retired, I'll take it on, I don't care. Ed's retired, he may care, but I don't care. And so I'm not sure we need 5 committees, but I think what I see down the road for the next couple of years, I'm talking about, because after you put a plan together and you start implementing that plan, then you need to keep track of it. You can't just turn it loose and move on to something else. And I think that there needs to be some more discussion and thought. You can't do away with finance, you can't do away with legal. You just, those two, and I agree. And part of the plan needs to be, okay, how much money do you need? And when does it need to be expended? And then you go to finance committee in this instance and say, we're going to need $2 million here. And the finance committee can say, well, we're not going to have but $1 million potentially. So we're going to have to get this thing figured out. I think 3 committees, that puts a tremendous burden on your planning committee. And you know, as well as I know, that planning is 80% of the problem. Getting a plan and then following up and implementing it and getting all the pieces pulled together, it's difficult. You know that, I know that, I think everybody in here understands that. And there's always hurdles along the way that you don't see. And somebody needs to be able to move quickly to eliminate those hurdles as much as you can. So that's my concern on the top part of 77 red line version. The other thing is, I think that if 4 counselors can bypass the committee structure entirely, that's what this says, that's a problem. That's a problem. You need to have, I mean, the present rules are 5, correct?
The present rule's 4.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe we ought to look at that and move it to a higher standard, because I don't want it easy to bypass all this planning that has to be done and follow-up that has to be done. It's been my observation that the city council has not done a stellar job in putting all the pieces together and then following up. They go from this project, okay, that one's done, let's go over here to this other shiny in the sand. And we got to quit doing that. We need to plan and follow up and get a job completed and then move on to something else. That's my edification so far.
Councilor Beza.
I guess I just need to make sure that I understand with the language. Because it appears to me that you're striking out infrastructure and public safety as a committee and combining public safety and general services, which to me seems we're totally disregarding or dismantling the infrastructure committee, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important committees that should be in place.
So council, I can speak to that. That was just, I had to choose a name. If we wanted to call it infrastructure committee, the meat of the change is on page 78, where if you go to section 2-42, it describes the duties. And so you can see the important part. So we took the language from infrastructure, and the most important component is physical assets of the city and city's property assets. And so city's property assets was added in to that committee. And similarly, capital improvement plans, which was also the major infrastructure duty. So this committee has the duties of infrastructure rolled into it. It just doesn't have.
I mean, are you talking about the public?
Public Safety and General Services Committee has all of infrastructure's duties rolled into it. We're just eliminating all the duties are there under another name.
Because it seems like, I mean, public safety right now deals with all fire, police, dispatchers, anything to do with safety.
And ambulance coming up.
The ambulance now.
Right. And so that's kind of my concern with public safety is they should work closely either with legal or with infrastructure or general services. Because if we're doing the ambulance service, like one of the things is we're going to have physical assets that are property as opposed to kind of like capital or non-fixed assets like the ambulances themselves versus how are we refurbishing the fire station to accommodate the new people. And so right now, as it stands, we'd have to go through those two committees to get different parts of the same project done. Does that sort of make sense? So you'd have to go to public safety to say, we want this many cars and ambulances. And then we have to go to infrastructure to say, well, we need to build the garage in this sort of way. And then we need to go to legal to write the ordinance about collection of funds for how we're going to do bill collection, because there's going to be an ordinance with the ambulance service. And then it has to go to finance to make sure we can pay for it. And so you see how it can.
It's all going to be a very complicated mix. And it's going to have to take lots of steps. I mean, there's not any outstanding individual group of city council members that are going to make this decision before it ever gets to the city council.
Right.
Yeah. Huh?
For you.
Yeah, well, we're going to have an ambulance service. I don't see how.
I'm not talking about the ambulance service. I'm
Talking about in general, if it ever gets to council.
Well, and there's some things that they not need to get to council, but and they need to be vetted. And we need to build a better plan going in. And I'm of the opinion that 10 minds on projects of this stature are better than one. Need to get more people involved in the discussion early on during the process. And then we all got to decide this is the way we're going to march. And then we all got to support fixing whatever hurdles that crop up, because there always are. That's just the nature of the business. In anything you go to do. I've never had a project that I thought I had adequately planned that didn't have some hurdles in it.
Yeah. Counselor, I said this early on that we've had 5 different groups grabbing the checkbook. Every committee can grab the checkbook. And I think that's led, no concrete proof, but it's probably led to some of our difficulties that we're having. And I agree with this concept of if you're spending money in a committee, it needs to go to finance, whether it's capital outlay projects, whatever it is. Because I've seen things happen with some committees. They're spending $500,000 trying to put it on the consent agenda, and it never hit the finance department or finance committee. And I don't think that is prudent financial management. And so I'm not opposed. I know it's going to slow the process down. It appears that it will slow the process down. What it will do is going to put stamp. You better get your stuff in.
But it's less.
But we need to have prudent financial processes and controls by the council and these committees to make sure it happens, that we don't have 5 different people writing checks.
Committees.
Well, the committees, yeah, that they're writing checks and that, like, whoa, wait a minute, this needs to go back for discussion. And, I'm not opposed when items are in the budget, but when we start talking about capital outlays and we start talking about grants and we start talking about some other things, where we've got to come up with money in front, it's going to impact the city's cash, and we all know this, just because we get a grant, we know we've got to write that check first, and that hampers the city's cash flow, is exactly what it does. Until those reimbursements come in, and you just can't be loading it up, oh, well, we're going to get the money, we're going to get the money, and all of a sudden you're going to wake up one of these days, there's no cash, but it's because we're waiting for reimbursement. And so I like the idea of pick a dollar amount, put it through the finance committee is one of the concepts to think about.
Yeah, and so I've thought about, kick this one around, and I think the way I would do it is we tie it to the procurement scheme. That way the rules are universal and there's no confusion. And then Chad and I are still working out proposed procurement. Well, we want to wait for the auditor to give us their suggested procurement rules that we would then bring to you guys. And so we'd have all that matched together.
Yeah.
And then the second part would be, do you guys still want to be considering things that were line item budgeted at the beginning of the year? Because then that's just administrative load on you guys.
Yeah.
It's duplication of effort.
Right. So we'd say that if it's line item, the budget that's approved doesn't need to go for second vote. If it's new money if new money absolutely by law would have to go anyway.
Yeah.
But if it's any change in line item, and then you look at the procurement rules for that.
Well, I got an issue with that as well, from the fact if you front end load these expenditures, what it does to the city's cash flow. That's one concern I have. How you stop that, because we front end loaded a lot of things when we come July this year and August, there were a lot of front end expenditures loaded up. And the revenue doesn't come in that same way. So.
And some take longer than others, depending on.
Yeah, so I have a little concern with that concept. Even though it's in a budget, somebody's got to sit there and oversee, not saying that you're not capable of it, but another set of eyes, maybe, I don't know. What I'm really trying to get here, but
I think I hear what you're saying. I would encourage the state solution to that is not, even though the legislature budgets you, it's not all released on day one.
right.
You get quarterly releases, except for the insurance that has to be paid up front. And that's something that we can just throw into the next budget, no problem.
Yeah. So
Just put release dates.
yeah, gradual releases,
Mhm.
because it does put the strain on the cash flow. And so that's one thing I would be hesitant in just allowing it just because it's in the budget, to just let it go without council review. As far as the number of committees, I think what Councilor Oropesa said about the infrastructure, that's a very important committee in this city. And I can see where public safety and general services could be combined.
Yeah.
I can see that pretty easy. Because I sometimes look at those agendas and there's not much on either one of those agendas. Do you disagree with that, Councilor? But I don't see doing away with infrastructure, but I do see if you're going to combine these down, we're going to run monetary things through or contractual things through the legal and the finance committee. Councilor Oropesa.
In my personal opinion, I would rather have public safety as a standalone committee and roll infrastructure and general services together.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to go to your expertise and pass.
I'm saying that because general services deal with infrastructure as well.
Right.
To a large degree, like the parks and recreation and that kind of stuff. And public safety, to me, seems like they should be dealing strictly with the safety issue with police, the fire, now the ambulance,
Yes.
and so forth. So they'll have a lot more to discuss than general services does. General services doesn't have a lot on the agenda for most of the time. As to me, it seems like it would make more sense to roll infrastructure and general services.
I have work to do, right? Councilor.
So I was going to make a couple, I actually agree with both of you on the fact that the money needs to be going through the finance. and I like the idea of the procurement possibility, that
Yeah.
limit. I actually completely agree with both you and Councilman Oropesa on the idea, the infrastructure, the combining infrastructure, public safety, and general services seems a little much, and infrastructure, I have noticed, is also a huge part of general services. But what I want to add, basically what I just said there was I completely agree with all of you. But what I want to add that hasn't been said is, I think one of the big things that I've noticed is that with 5 committees, to stay educated on 5 different committees as a counselor is extremely difficult. If you're going to actually be active and putting things into motion, barely make it to your 2. So I could see 4, but my kind of hopes in this is that what I'm seeing is we have 5 committees, we have 10 counselors, and they're not making it and not completely informed, so everything gets hashed out at the actual city council meeting. And I feel that if they're exposed to have an easier chance of being exposed to more, especially going through 2 committees, they're going to at least get hit. Then by the time the council, there is no excuse for not being educated or not having concepts or not having been discussed. It should, most of those discussions that we have at midnight should have actually been discussed in depth at the committee meetings. And so that is kind of why I have been a proponent of streamlining and narrowing down. But we all make good points here. So I am game with, but I just think we really need to try to get it done in committee before council.
Well,
I agree with you. Yeah.
this is where it's supposed to happen,
Yeah.
not at the city council meeting.
Well, it's been happening at a city council meeting, and you're right, till midnight. And at that point in time, it's not fair to anyone. And, you're correct. If you're trying to attend 5 committee meetings, 3 of which you're not a member of,
Right.
it's a lot of work. Even if you want to sit home and YouTube them to see what's taking place, it's a lot of work to be an informed counselor. Now, if you don't just want to show up and go to city council meeting, it's no big deal.
Right.
But I don't think any of the council members behave that way. And so, that I'm in concurrence with, I think, what's being said here. I'm also in concurrence, and the reasoning for this, Councilor Corn, is the 4 members can bring it to council, which happens to be the same number of people which are on committees. And so those numbers fall in line. And so instead of going to 5, it's the same number of individuals, council members that a committee would comprise themselves of.
So under this, if it's money or contracts, it's going to have 8 people review it, not just 4.
I get it. But
Now, they may not all vote for it, but certainly 3 out of at least 6 will have voted for it.
So what will be the breakup of members in the committees? Are you gonna have some that will not be assigned to the 3 committees, or are you gonna have some that will be assigned to?
Well,
What would be the
so
makeup of every committee?
yeah, so the appointment provisions haven't been changed. The mayor makes the appointments. Every counselor gets at least one.
At least one or?
At least one. It'd be 1 because there's only going to be 16 spots.
4 counselors will not get
2
on 2
committees.
committees.
2 committees.
Okay.
Don't volunteer too quickly for that one.
I would-
That was exciting.
That was quick.
It's all-
And he was quick too.
it's all the wisdom.
So to make sure I'm getting it, so for drafting, public safety, general services and infrastructure, legal, finance, 2 committee rule, legal or finance are always the second committee.
Yeah, I think that's where this discussion has led to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're not going to back off on 4?
Well, I might ask you to do something here.
Chair, I actually was, I thought that the actual rule on that was, it required 5 to currently to get it into council.
We were going to 4.
We were?
That's what this came out as. This was the original
Oh,
one
in
that did
the,
not
okay,
pass.
okay.
I
Well,
believe it sits now at 5.
Yeah, I prefer 5.
I do too.
I mean, the one reason I would, not that my voice matters a ton, but it's going to be really weird if one committee wants something and then making it 4, they can bypass the legal and finance committee.
5 makes it a little more.
They at least have to peel off one committee member
From
from.
another, that's why I
Right.
saw it.
Yeah.
You'd have to find that
I'm
straggler.
indifferent now that I think about that apology.
Okay,
I was just
so
saying,
we're going to change that to 4 and we're going to change it to 4 committees.
4 committees, 5 to council. Mayor keeps his prerogative.
Well, the mayor, you can't take that away from the mayor. That just goes with the job.
I'm still waiting on his new title.
I'll work on that.
Got some ideas.
that'll give us some time.
I've got a couple
Yeah.
of people that would have some very good input.
I don't think we're going to go on the street right now. We'll move on to the next topic.
Okay.
So what do you want, question?
Yeah.
Just so that we understand the staff, how this will work on section 2.38. So like airport leases, would those go to general services first, then to legal?
Yep.
And then what about resolutions coming out of finance? Because we do. a lot of-
Then they go to legal.
So all the resolutions coming out of finance will then have to go to legal too. Okay.
If it's a budget resolution that's otherwise an approved project, it's just a sufficiency question and we can move it through if that's what the chair wants. Yeah.
Just getting it straight.
And then, yes, so that's the, nothing else was changed from what we proposed to council. And then I do want to go to page, what page should I tell you this stuff?
97.
97. So this is the third part, and this wasn't put into the red line because it's very new. We haven't discussed with some people. Councilor Arnold asked that I draft up a code of ethics for the governing body. And so this is a mix of Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Cruces, Farmington, and the municipal league's ethics provisions that have been tightened up for what I think is tighter language, because, I think highly of myself. So in any case, it's the governing responsibility, the governing body has to obey the Government Conduct Act. So that's the default rule. And by putting it in ordinance, the council now is given itself authority for any violation of the Government Conduct Act to pursue certain discipline against its members for violations. Part 2 is to not disclose confidential information about property, government, or the affairs of the city, which historically has been something of a problem for some councilors. To not participate in negotiation of making a contract with the business entity if you have a direct financial interest or an indirect interest of through an immediate family member. Not to participate in quasi-judicial matters where your impartiality may be reasonably questioned. That one actually just tracks the code of judicial conduct that is supposed to be applied to counselors in those settings. Never exercise authority as a governing body member except when acting through the governing body. That's from the municipal league. Never use the organization or service of the governing body for personal advantage or for particular advantage of friends or supporters. Constituent services would not be included in that definition, though, because you guys exist to serve, and constituent services are a big part of what you do. Can't accept valuable gifts or anything from an employee or an applicant or employment from the city. This wouldn't touch campaign contributions, though. That'd be a First Amendment problem, so it has to be like that. Not accept or solicit campaign contributions for a PAC or yourself or something similar in city workplace property. So don't do it in City Hall during a meeting, but if you're having a fundraiser in a park, that's totally fine. And finally, the penalty. I don't want to say it's loosey-goosey, but it is loosey-goosey. Because the state law doesn't give a whole lot of teeth to non-home rule municipalities. So what I wrote in is that if somebody wants to make hay of this, a counselor can bring it forward and it would then go to the manager and the attorney where we would see if it's actually a real ethics violation. And I hate to put it this way, but like in Albuquerque, you've seen the weaponization of the Ethics Commission. 2 weeks before an election, there's a ton of ethics filings and it's all BS. Usually, unless it's filed against people I dislike. But so what we'd have here is we'd have two bureaucrats, we're bureaucrats, have two bureaucrats who you all have agreed should be hired to review it and say, yeah, that actually is an ethics issue that you've shown me. We deliver it to the clerk for presentation to the whole governing body, and the governing body will take a vote on it. The governing body would take a vote, and if they find that there has been a violation, can do anything consistent with state law to discipline themselves. So reprimand, censure, removal from committee assignments are all in the books. The biggest one, which I didn't put here because it's something we would discuss in closed session, is you can always order me to file complaints. So if there's a particularly egregious violation, we meet in closed session and a majority of the council can say, file a formal complaint with the State Ethics Commission, take this to court because there might have been a crime involved, that sort of thing. But again, that's not in the ordinance because that's a very different type of procedure. Exactly. So I thought it was encompassing generally, and it has the backstop of the Government Conduct Act if I missed anything.
So, table this.
I think it needs some more discussion because I think what you've got to look at this is you've got to go back to an ordinance 2305, which was amending the chapter at that point in time, and lay that down along with this because this is amending that ordinance. And I would like to see a lay down of that because that's where you go into a little further items. And I don't know whether you all want to have some further discussion on that amendment as well.
Well, we may when we see it.
And so if you go back and want to look at that, that's probably, it needs some further discussion by this committee to get this all encompassing. If we're going to amend the chapter, then we ought to look at the whole picture. So that would be my recommendation, that we look at that ordinance 2305.
Yeah, so that's included in this, but what I can do is send a full red line with everything here, a cleaner red line. It won't have the side comments.
And the whole thing, because that has the wards, that has everything listed in there.
Yeah, it'll be a full red line of all of chapter 2 as is today, what was not passed by 6 but voted for by 5 in 2305.
Right.
Plus these additions that we've discussed today.
So, Councilor Orpesa.
You know, the language on this one, following an investigation, when is an investigation over and done with? And does that investigation, the results, is it going to be open to the public?
So it depends on the accusation. You know, if it's something that, when I say, this is something I want, thank you for the question. The idea would be that the manager and the attorney would have to do some basic level of diligence before agreeing to put this in front of the council.
And let me explain why I bring that up, because as far as I know, there was an investigation concerning a counselor a couple of years, I guess. But that investigation, as far as I know, has never come to an end because it was referred to the state police. And we never got a result. And so, in my opinion, that investigation, I guess, is still ongoing. The counselor is not here anymore.
I wasn't aware of, was I aware of that? I don't think I was aware of
It's been several years ago.
Yeah, this is,
It's been a
yeah.
couple of years.
I mean, something that a lot of other codes do, and I try to avoid because I hate deadlines, but we can throw in within 90 days shall be investigated.
Well, and I'm speaking from the perspective of the public, because the public knew that the counselor was referred for an investigation to the state police. but they never received an ending result of what happened. I mean, obviously, nothing. So, on the investigation, so I think it's important that we put a time limit on it, that if an investigation is gonna be done, it should be done in a specific amount of time if possible.
Let me ask a question, clarifying question. So you're talking about getting it started within 90 days or getting it concluded in 90 days?
I would say concluded from the time that it was referred.
And say 90 days.
I'm not sure 90 days is sufficient time unless there's a caveat in there for an extension, because I know how some of these investigations get started. They start over here and then they find things through the investigation. They need to go over here and check this path, or they got to, I mean, these things can kind of grow, because generally, been my observation that while I was a judge, where the investigation looked like it was going to end up over here, ended up over here. And then that causes a lot of retrack over here and then refocus over there.
Right, and I'm not suggesting 90 days. I'm just saying that there should be some kind of end to it. Whether it be 90 days, a year, that's up to the legal.
Well,
the legal.
I'm like you, I want to know what the final chapter says.
Yep.
Well, I think, we don't need to let this be like they do in Washington DC, where investigation, there's no notice of anything, which is what happens. And so I think there needs to be some form of disclosure, is what you're saying. After the investigation,
Right.
Either no allegations or
Nothing sustained or, yeah.
and there needs to be some mechanism so that the public knows the investigation was concluded and what the findings were.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, as far as the documents, they would be iterable. Our investigation would not be subject to the employee confidentiality provisions because counselors aren't employees for IPRA.
Right.
But yeah, so the deadline would be the key part, because once the deadline comes, well, I mean, at any point in the investigation, the documents are discoverable by the public.
Yeah.
For that one, maybe I'll make a few different suggestions and you guys can masticate on
That'll
it.
be good.
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Arnold.
I would like to actually table ordinance 24XX, amending chapter 2 of the city code to the January legal committee meeting to allow for review of the full code and additional verbiage for deadlines.
So I got a motion and a second to postpone this item till the January legal committee meeting. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, Sam. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is the scope of work for the Roswell Chavez County All Hazard Emergency Operation Plan. And Ms. Sanders is indisposed at the moment, so Mr. Matthews will take this one on, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much. Very simple, it's got a scope of work. This is for RP 24007, the All Hazard Emergency Operations Plan for Roswell and Travis County. We're required to have updated plan every 10 years. This plan is about 8.5 years old at this point. It's pretty lengthy endeavor to rewrite this plan or update it. So we're trying to get a jump start on it. We do have the finances in this year's budget, but right now we just want to get the scope of work approved, get it out, and have our vendors bid on it. And this stuff will come back to committees for their approval. This did go to public safety on Tuesday, and they voted 3-0 to send to full council on consent agenda, just for your information. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on it. I will say that this is one of the plans that we're required to have to apply for many of our federal and state grants. So we're in compliance, have been for quite some time, and we want to stay in compliance as far as it comes to the operations.
Any questions of Mr. Matthews? Being none, then I'll entertain a motion.
That's all officially. All
Right.
day.
He's been.
Talking a lot.
Record, I checked today.
Well, some seconds, but.
All right. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we send to full council, consider approval of RFP 24-007, scope of work for Roswell/Chavez County All Hazards Emergency Operations Plan on the consent agenda, since the other committee already sent it on consent.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second. Counselor Corn being the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is RFP 24-008, Visitor Center Management Services. And we'll refer this to Mr. Cole, please. Page 106 in your packets if you're following in your packet.
Mr. Chair,
Did you want, I was ready to
please,
vote.
go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I didn't tell him I put his name there.
It's okay.
Council, this is something that we haven't really done before, but I'm trying to get procurement into the spirit of, is exploratory RFPs. It's a useful technique to see what is out there. So as you know, the visitor center this year was budgeted for $373,846, plus the lost value of being able to otherwise rent a nice, desirable city property. We wanted to see if private industry would do it better. So modeled after the PVRCC, we put out a scope of work that tracks what the visitor center presently does, but in lieu of having it, in lieu of the sale of City of Roswell merchandise, allows the sale of whoever wins merchandise. And we would see how much they're willing to pay us for the building to have the privilege of using it and running a visitor center. So if it could come in very profitable for the city, it could be something there we say, no, thank you. We have a good service right now and we'd rather pay for it. But at this point, when we're talking, just a rental for a building like that, plus the $373,000, we're talking about $500,000 plus the other things we have to do for the building. We're talking over $400,000 a year of city revenue or lost revenue. And so it seems that it's prudent to explore our options.
Question for you. I see here that you're only requiring, what hours are we operating at a center right now?
We operate from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
We do not open on Saturday.
Amanda?
We are open.
Oh, sorry, not Sunday and Monday are closed.
We're open on Saturday.
And we're open Saturday. We used to be open Saturday. And we worked every holiday, but with the loss of an employee, we had to cut those because of overtime. But for the time that I've been there, the entire time it was a week.
So we're doing 6 days, it's supposed to be done, right?
Right now, we're doing 5.
Doing 5,
Because
not
I
doing,
do
so
some within that 40 hours.
you're doing Sunday, Monday,
Sunday, Monday, those are our traveling
Which from
days.
the back.
and then you're doing 9 to 6.
9 to 5.
9 to 5.
8 to 5 for our full-time, 9 to 5 for our part, but we open to the public from
Okay.
there. And businesses in downtown usually don't open about 9:30.
Yeah, so we're trying to catch people walking, coming by the visitor center.
Yes, sir. So in the morning time, in that 1 hour before we open, that gives us time to do our deposits, fix up everything, clean, sweep, whatever we have to do, get ready to open.
Get ready for the day.
If we have a morning staff meeting, we open.
How many people are you currently,
Myself included.
Yes.
And I have Dorothy, our lead, and part-time. Our other full-time position was already subtracted from the budget that we were allotted, so that was no longer.
so you got 2.5 people operating it right now? And I guess my concern, or a concern, is operating it at the standard of being a welcoming visitor center and how you can get a third party to operate it at the standards that we feel is necessary, shall I say. So that's a concern, and I don't know whether that language is here because, that is a place where people that come to this community are supposed to feel really welcome. And if they buy something, so be it. But that's what they're here to do at the visitor center, is to find out about the city of Roswell. And I do not, that's what you all do.
That's our first thing. So when I train them house, when they come in, it is to get our visitors and our locals to our downtown areas, our local restaurants, our local, or to get them into Roswell. If they happen to purchase anything that we sell, then they happen to purchase, but we do tell them that the shops are all downtown, they're open.
Downtown shops.
I've even taken them to the stores to see what they have available, because people do come and ask, where did you find this? Where did you find this? And we send them to those shops.
Right.
So that is our mission, and our goal is to help locals. I try to stay away from selling things that they do. I try to push our brand because this is what we are proud of. I tailor to, like I hear everybody saying, not everybody can afford $50 sweatshirt. So I try my best to find that for people that are traveling on budget.
Right.
But if it's all about saving money, our visitor center is fully funded under lodger's tax. The salaries, everything, maintenance, the only thing that comes out of general is the $100,000
For what?
the store, the merchandise.
Yeah.
Which my numbers.
So we should be getting that back in sales.
You do.
So that's just the outlay for the inventory.
Now.
So that should turn over, and you're going to create that revenue for it. And one of the things I want to talk about, in addition to that, is maybe we should have a licensing agreement with some of these other.
Actually, we can actually wholesale our merchandise from us to the vendors, and they
To
can
the
buy
other
this
vendors.
at cost, which I've worked with Josh on multiple trying to get. I believe it was Holiday Inn that was interested in doing it. And Yes Way, which would have been also to the time. We also offer them to sell an agreement because it is a trademark logo for them to actually use the logo and pay the city royalties.
Right.
So there is those offers as well. So they can also use our logo in their jobs.
Okay, well, those are the concerns I have, is one, that it is something that we maintain this welcoming attitude towards people coming into this community. And I thought about this and went, well, if you're going to make a change, then you find an order, maybe you staff it with volunteers too.
Right. And so that's part of the.
Staff it with volunteers, because there's a lot of people, including myself, that might want to go every Thursday from 12 to 5 or whatever, I'll go down there and work.
Right.
And so do we open ourselves up to allowing that to take place as well? And I get this is funded through lodgers, except for, well, even the merchandise. So that's just one-time capital outlay. You keep turning that over, you turn it over, you turn it over. And you should pay for itself.
And I got numbers for that too, if you want me to go over that, but I got a year-to-date calendar from January to October. We've made $160,692.
In gross sales.
Yes.
But that's not.
And that is, well, that's what we've made so far. That is covering, I still do a cost recover, even though we
You're right.
voted out. Our cost recovery was 40%. So that's including the 40% plus the 5% tax that we paid back for the merchandise plus whatever's left.
Okay.
Right now, our fiscal year sales, which is from July through now, is $62,582. Our expenses so far this year, out of the $100,000 that you give us that we've actually spent, is $1,300. I have encumbered 89, but that is because we were doing projects for downtown to go out and try to entice people to go down. It's just something that we do, so, I don't know if that makes a difference cost or anything.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
Council.
give me the dates that 160,000 covers again.
That would be from January to now in October of
So
2023.
10-month cycle
we're not even getting
So here you go, sir.
2 turnovers.
on
No,
our inventory.
You need.
We need to manage our inventory better.
yes,
We need at least, you need to turn over your inventory at least 3 times
so
a year, so we're not even getting to that threshold.
No.
Another question, while I've got the floor, what's your peak load? Do you have a time, not counting UFO festival or other special events, during the week? Is Wednesday at 1 o'clock a busy time for you? Or 9 o'clock in the morning, or what's your?
fluctuates as far as the traffic of tourists. So, but most of the time I could say our afternoon time, our lunchtime to about when we close is our highest peak. Like right now, before I came here, we were already at $405 a ticket sales. So it just depends on the flow and the traveling, the occasion when people are here, and what is going on.
Well, I got that, but I mean, UFO festival's going on. I think you guys are probably pretty busy.
Yes.
Maybe when the.
March, so summertime is our really big time. We have our slow peak, which is between now and January, mid-January. And then it slowly starts picking up.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Do we know who was the visitor center revamped by the city, or was it who ran our welcome center prior? Does anyone know? Because I know the chamber and there was a couple. Main Street.
Councilor Pace may have an idea on that.
It was me.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it was the Roswell Spotted Chamber.
Okay.
They had the contract for 5-6 years before we went along and ran the one at the convention center. And then they decided that they weren't going to put it out anymore. It was going to be in-house. And so it came in-house.
Yeah.
But when we were running it, we had, I wouldn't say volunteers, but the career center had people that needed to work, put in hours for their requirement.
Yeah.
And so we accepted 4 or 5, and of course, there was a lot of turnover with that kind of system, so. But the Hispano Chamber was running it.
Okay, thank you. Rita was asking.
Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the Hispano Chamber took it over, the city was running it with all volunteers from the RSVP.
Yeah. Ms. James.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, in 2016, when I arrived at the city, it was currently being ran by temporary staffing through ITS Quest out of the convention center. At that time, the convention center was undergoing or was going to be undergoing construction. And so the council at that time decided to move the visitor center from inside the convention center to its current location. It moved over there in 2017. The council at that time decided not to hire temporary employees because of the cost, and that is how we ended up with city employees.
No.
And if I may, the merchandise became a factor when COVID happened, and that was a decision that the council made just to keep our staff employed because it could be a resale location.
Could you do that online as well too?
Yes.
Do you guys sell that merchandise at the museum as well?
There is some merchandise that
The
is
Roswell,
available
it is, yeah.
at the museum.
So I think, I don't want to be hasty in making statements, because for me, this is kind of like a test. I think that putting it out for RFP would kind of take the temperature of our community on ideas and concepts of possibly doing it differently or more community-minded than a government would. So for that reason, I'm interested to see what kind of responses to the RFP are out there.
I'm out.
Well, no.
You need a break?
I think this needs a little more thought process.
Okay.
That's my belief. Because I think we brought up some good questions in here. One, the inventory turnover, show us how you can operate this thing at a better than we're operating it. I think one of the things that you brought up was what's your peak hours? And maybe that thing only opens up with one employee. I mean, I think we need a business plan that says this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. And I'm not opposed, and maybe that business plan includes volunteers, that we do that. So Councilor Arpaza.
But the way I understand the language is you're putting it out for somebody to bid on it, to
Right.
run the visitor center, but not necessarily selling city products.
Right.
They would be selling their own product if somebody gets so if somebody gets it, and I think the issue of the city selling their T-shirts or whatever may have to go a different direction if they, I mean, I don't agree with it, but, I think that by doing what we're doing right now, we're competing with the businesses downtown, which we should be supporting instead of competing. But again, that's not my call, but.
Well, I don't disagree with that. And that's why I asked about the license agreement or these other vendors in town selling our products as well. How do we get them to sell our products? I'm not so interested, to your point of making some of these items affordable for people on a budget, not trying to steal money from the other vendor. I don't know how you do that. I just don't know how you.
Well, I will tell you that when we were running it, we had 2 or 3 shops downtown. They had their product at the visitor center, and we were taking a percentage of
their sale.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we look at as a mix of that whole thing. Are we doing that now?
Well, was it last year, the year before that, we even had vendors. We bought merchandise from vendors and we sold it for them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's, I don't know how it likes legally for us to do something like that.
Oh, it's legal.
Ins and outs of
You
all
could do
that.
consignment.
They're just a vendor.
And
You're signing for
we
business.
did it for the zoo. We got merchandise from the zoo there, so I mean, we're willing to.
I would really like to see a business.
Well,
Move to table. Table.
I have a motion, but
I
do you want some discussion?
Well, I actually just wanted to say something additional. When I'm looking at this from a business perspective, it is hard for me to make an analysis of putting it out for RFP without understanding what other opportunities are out there. Putting it out for RFP kind of shows us what else could be done. We're always talking about money, right, Bob? That's $378,000 that I actually think could be spent on more items of tourism infrastructure.
But no, money can't go there.
To tourism.
Yeah, this is lodger's tax. We can use it any,
We can't move.
No, yeah, and that's something I'm going to make us like, saying it's funded by lodger's tax does not mean it's free money. This is still money that would be, that whatever lodger's tax isn't spent on, the general fund covers.
We get it back.
Right. So lodger's tax is a recurring revenue source. Like it, yeah. So I'm putting the brakes is your prerogative. For me, I don't know if our business plan is any good unless we compare it to other business plans for people who want it.
That's right.
And Mr. Chair, I've never seen an RFP or a bid process that didn't improve quality and price through competition. And so, there was a proposal buy our inventories or whatever, they could certainly compete.
We want this to go through this.
This is not an RFP per se. This is an experimental kind of thing. What'd you call it?
Well, I mean, it is a request for proposals. We want anybody who thinks they can do it better to propose why. And we'll see if they're actually.
My concern goes back to the quality of service they're going to provide as a welcoming center. That's what my concern is how do we make sure that they're providing.
I'll take it over and do it. He's finished.
Yeah, I think
Well,
we can just give it to Todd too.
I
That
mean,
is an option.
I'm in property now, but my history is 20 years in marketing.
Right.
And it's kind of been my personal opinion all along is if the city's going to control their brand and the welcoming, if we're going to be the welcome center, my personal opinion is nobody can do it better than a city employee who wants to be in tourism, who loves their city. Because you can hire anybody and teach them to do a job, but you can't teach them to care. We hire people that care for the city. And those people are, you got anybody else in there and their mission statement is always going to trump ours, was my concern. But who knows? You may have may have another group out there that is right on board with us, like-minded with us, and is going to take it and do exactly what we do, but do it better. I don't know.
And Mr. Chair, I would say, just from my own observations and many reports that I've received from folks coming in from out of town that reached out to me personally and let me know our team has done a great job over there. They are very friendly. They do an outstanding job. This is not a knock on the employees of the city. But what you notice in the scope of work, we're asking for employee staffing of the visitor center. We're looking to maintain the interior of the building. This proposal. Promote local tourist attractions and events with no less than 40 hours per week or 5 days per week. It could be adjusted. Information about Roswell, its attractions, its events. Ensure Roswell-related materials and guides. It goes on. Rack space for advertising for tourist attractions, 10% of the available square footage. So we tried to, right along the lines of your thought process, we're trying to ensure that there's a quality visitor center there as well. Track and provide number of visitors to the visitor center, and attend quarterly meetings with city management so that we are getting that feedback and there's that give and take communication between the two. And essentially what the city of Roswell will be doing is maintaining the exterior of the building, the structural components of the building, the roof, those types of things. But we get away from the janitorial component, maintaining the restrooms, and of course staffing.
Yes, ma'am.
If this were to go through, what does that mean for the staff that's currently there?
So we have vacancies throughout the city, and there would be those options to the staff, as we talked about.
I know one of the questions that was asked of them was, since this is being kind of forced upon them to go into other jobs, will their 6 months probation be waived from them? Or how is that gonna work? Because they're not, every time you apply for a position within the city or get promoted, you go under another 6 months, no matter how long you've been here. Which gives anybody any right to be fired without cause. So if they are assigned to a job that they're don't really necessarily have the qualifications and have to learn the job and are struggling, how does that go with them? I mean, because they weren't asking, they didn't apply for those positions.
Sure.
So will that 6 months be waived for them and give them a fair opportunity?
So, Mr. Chair, actually, in light of some of the last couple of things, I think I would like to do more research and kind of talk to members and groups in the community to ascertain interest. And also, if you could actually, maybe if we could table this and then actually have a little more input on that end. That way we kind of have an idea of where that would go, a little more information. So, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to table.
You already got that motion on the table.
Did you table it?
I did,
Steph, I'm sorry.
a long time ago.
That's because I'm.
And we've been going on for another 30
We never
minutes.
got a second because I didn't ask for a
Okay.
second.
Okay, sorry.
So,
Second.
That's why I got this extended, so I can reach across the table.
You know, you can raise all the chaos at finance, but stop it here.
It's a controlled environment. Okay.
So I have a motion and a second to postpone RFP 24008 until January. You want to give them plenty of time to get this done? Are you fine with that?
That way I can.
Get you through the holidays and.
Maybe I won't be here for you to pick on in January.
Other than that. So a motion and a second. All in favor, signify. Any further discussion? All those. Ms. Jennings.
If I could make a request to try to understand, what is the intent or what do you want from this team that we're not providing?
Oh, I didn't ask for anything from
I
this.
asked for a business plan,
So,
which would show that you're going to turn that inventory over. You're going to reduce that inventory down. And maybe a reduction in the staffing level, having 2 people there at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock, whatever it is, try to hit your peak times. And also, I'm okay with you working Sunday, Monday closed or whatever. I don't know how many stores are stores open down on Sunday.
No.
They're closed. So I know we get a lot of tourists come through here on Sunday, but leaving that kind of void, shall I say, by being closed on Sunday as a visitor center. So.
Mr. Cole, if you could.
But your request is, I'm assuming that you're making that request on the assumption that this may go through.
I'm making that request.
Because you're
Expected, separate from
making the
this.
request from their department to come up with a plan.
To tell us all how we're going to operate that facility at less than $378,000.
No, but I'm saying it's, if this
Goes through.
then that plan is non-existent?
Well, depending on if, one, we get anybody that bids it, and 2, if any of them meet the minimum qualification.
Right.
I mean, this is not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm not comfortable, if we're not turning our inventory over 3 times a year over there, then we're not going to ever get there. I mean, that's a minimum. You really, if you're going to hold it together, you need to turn your inventory 4 times a year.
That would be the prime number to get. So.
Right.
is selling merchandise something you want us to do or not do?
Well, I think that's the business that you put yourself in, and we're not saying to stop that. I think if you're going to sell merchandise, then we need to know.
But before COVID, we were just the information center. And so that's, I
Well,
just
we're,
kind of want to understand what's the intent that you guys are looking for
For me, it's cost analysis.
to operate?
Yeah.
And I think this came about from the last administration
Yeah.
that put more emphasis on tourism than any other administration has. And put in some other issues like recovery, the recovery.
Oh, the cost recovery.
Cost recovery programs.
Right.
And so I guess my question would be to staff, is that something that you feel that we need to have? Personally, I don't. Personally, I don't think we need to sell product. you dish it out to the downtown merchants or anybody else and concentrate only in tourism, period, instead of trying to concentrate in making money.
I don't have a problem with what you're saying,
I don't either.
but their present business plan as it stands today is they're selling product.
Right.
So if you're going to sell product, then you got to turn that product over. If you're not turning that product over, then you need to get out of the sales business. I mean, you're an automotive guy. How many times did you all try to turn your inventory on a car lot?
Well, you better turn the used car lot over 60 days, you're gonna be in trouble.
That's about 60 days.
60 days.
What's the markup on our current t-shirts?
So you get a 40% markup.
40% markup and then
40% markup or 40% margin?
40% margin and then, well, 45 because we do the tax.
So your markup is really higher than that.
So like if I buy a shirt, everything costs $8, then we mark it up to 40% margin to do the recovery cost, the 40% recovery, then 5% tax on that we have to pay.
Plus the cost of the shirt.
So our shirts, all of our shirts pretty much are $15.75. That's what the tax.
Okay.
So I think there's two questions sitting here with what you're saying. Are we going to operate it, see their analysis to see what they're doing? But then if that doesn't work, then you operate it as a true visitor center only is what.
Right.
And if you want to have a licensing agreement with other vendors in this community to sell our logo, to sell the city logo branded stuff, that's a separate issue.
Right.
Is it?
And that's kind of where my question is, what is the intent of this council? Because we're currently operating out of the intent of the previous council.
Well, I think you're operating right now. You're operating how you have been operating because you haven't been instructed to operate any different.
Correct.
Is what I believe.
That's correct.
The council has not changed anything for you all. I think what we're telling you is if you're going to operate, we need to see a business plan that will come back in detail and show what your costs are going to be to operate it. And what your margin are going to be, or your net profit off of it. I don't care about the markups or whatever. If I'm selling something for $10, it cost me $5, I got a 50% margin, but that's 100% markup. Those are two different animals. So that's what we're saying. So you continue to operate as you're operating, but come back with a plan, and we can get this RFP, send it out, and compare that with your plan is what I believe is where we're headed.
It's like a cost, that's what I'm
So
saying. It's a
look at the
cost
whole-
analysis.
look at
The whole
This
picture.
way, and then we'll look at this another
Because
way.
there may not be anyone, interested, but we also
Right.
need to understand what's out there and looking at this, at the numbers of it, and then saying, okay, what can we do different? What can we do better? Is there other opportunity? That's why it's pure cost analysis.
Yep.
It needs to be tabled so we can get the information that we need to make a reasonable decision.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. There being no further discussion, all those favor by tabling this item, or do you have further item? Yep. You have further discussion?
No.
No. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same, being none, so moved. I have no comments, reports, or announcements. But I will ask for public participation. Ms. Thorhoff.
Rita Kane Dorhofer, very narrow, unstriped Chicago Bears mailbox, Mark Road. I want to speak on, unless you tell me I should wait till January, about the visitor center. Number one, I think it is a horrible idea. Where are you going to get the experience of Amanda? Where are you going to get the passion? Remember when we had the UFO and we traded it out to Ohio? They didn't know a green chili from a red chili. They didn't know anything. You need people that are local. So if you're going to do this RFP, you need local people who know where hot Mexican food is, where mild Mexican food is. You can't get that with somebody from Louisiana, Arkansas, Ohio. Maybe you just need to cut the fat out of the budget, out of this budget here, but you're not going to get the experience that we need. That's my personal opinion, and I'll have my 30 questions in January. Thank you.
Have any questions?
I have about 30, but I'll speak very fast. You'll pick it up.
30, I'm gonna keep track. You don't come in here with 31.
No, I will have them here, but the experience is what you
I
need.
think Ms. Storhofer, that is exactly what we were talking about. It's just what you said. We're not going to make a decision on this. We make sure that there are people with passion for this community that are welcoming people to this community. And it's not always about dollars and cents, but it is about dollars and cents. Reasonable dollars and cents is what it's about.
And Mr. Chairman, it's about people that have a passion and the experience and know Roswell and can say, well, you know, we have Carlsbad Caverns down there, but it's 3:00 and the last elevator leaves at 3:00, so you're never going to make it. Where is somebody from Ohio going to know any of that? They're not. Thank you.
I think we're talking the same medicine here. So any other further, you have anything you wish to say, sir?
Well.
And you sat here the whole meeting.
Bruce Handler, 210 South Ohio, slightly dented mailbox.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I agree with her. Todd, God, this man is amazing for that kind of frontline, face-to-face promotion. Yeah, he's amazing. I've seen him out in public hundreds of times. Thank you. I kind of get what Juanita is saying. I hear people talking about promoting. If you're going to promote, you're in the business of little trinkets. People love stuff that they tactile can hold. You want to get those out.
Yep.
But there's no profit in trinkets. And shirts, yeah, you're never going to make a real profit in shirts unless you have that's all your business does. But what do we want? Do we want this to be this is the first contact promotion of, look at all this great stuff because that doesn't make money. People spend a lot of money advertising for a reason. It costs money to advertise. Is that going to be our advertisement? Then again, the spirited person that you were a cheerleader, weren't you?
Yeah.
But that doesn't make money. Trinkets don't make money, but you pass out for a nominal fee, you cover your cost, but everybody's looking at this. The banners, the pens, just simple little things. How many people's opened a bank account? They really didn't want to open, but there was some trinket being given. Where's Julia?
Yeah.
How many people have done that? What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
So which way do we want to go? Roswell has so much to offer. We don't have a lot of advertising. And especially in this age, Sirius XM all day long, no local commercials. Television, I don't see any local commercials. And that's the way that today's generation is, young and old. So this is an opportunity for marketing that an outside company, I do not believe, would have, as stated earlier, the enthusiasm to get people to go downtown. Carlsbad has a lot to offer. If they make it down there, good for them. They're in Roswell now. Promote Roswell. I want to tell you about what to do tomorrow afternoon here. Not go down to Carlsbad tomorrow.
I agree with you. I think
the outside companies are not going to care. They're there for, especially if it's going to be for a profit margin, they're there for the profit. They don't care where you go. You spend some money and go about your business. For these ladies and keeping it in-house, why don't you come back tomorrow and try this business over here? I'm sorry, I don't really know enough about what's down Main Street to speak, but that would be you.
I had a map for you.
I don't have to open a bank account either.
No, you don't.
no free toasters over there.
No, we got.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
You're welcome, Bruce. Any other further comments? I can't read. Our visitor centers to Roswell should be run by Roswell. Our brand is important.
More anonymous notes.
saying we're going to close the visitor center.
We haven't said that. I think what we're saying is that we're going to look at different avenues of this whole thing
It's an
and take a
analysis.
good look at it. That's why it's been pushed back to give it some more thought, in my opinion. I think that's what this whole committee's opinion.
That works for me.
Chief, now that you've walked in, we're allowing public participation. You want to be a chief or you want to be a public participant? Or none of the above?
It was like a fun.
City manager, how you're coming along with new vehicles, and you said you probably see some the 1st of January.
Maybe even as soon as start seeing them in December.
That'd be great.
That'd be good.
Is the first vehicle going to retire a Crown Victoria?
The Dodge Chargers are the ones that we're having more issues with, Brian. So we'll keep, probably retire a few Crown Victorias and a few Dodge Chargers. They're 6-7 years old also.
I drove by the convention center yesterday, and I guess you must have had some training or something going on.
Crown Vics in the parking lot.
Oh, my goodness. Terrible. Okay, thank you, Chief. Being no other comments, this meeting is adjourned.